All right, multiplying. Let me just flip the lights the opposite way so it's easier to see up there. Okay, multiplying. So, when you multiply, when you take a positive number times a positive number, what are you going to get? Positive number. When you take a positive number times a negative number, what are you going to get? Negative. When you take a negative times a negative, what are you going to get? Positive. Okay? What about when you take a negative times a negative times a positive times a negative times a negative times a positive times a negative? Oop, a negative. It's going to be negative. How do you know it's going to be a negative? What's an easy way of figuring out whether something's positive or negative? You count the number of negative signs. If there's an even number of negative signs, it's going to be positive. If there's an odd number of negative signs, it's going to be negative. So, when you multiply positive times a negative, you multiply their absolute values, and the answer is going to be negative. The product of an even number of negative numbers is always going to be positive. So what's negative 9 times 4? Positive or negative? Negative, and 9 times 4 is 36. What's 6.6 times negative 6.6 times negative 21? Well, what I would do is put 21 here, 6.6 here with the decimal point. Okay? And then take 6 times 1, which is 6. 6 times 2, which is 12. And then 6 times 1, which is 6. You got to leave a space here when you do the tens place. 6 times 2, which is 12. Add, you get 6, 8, 3, 1. And since there's one decimal place up here, there's one decimal place down here. A negative times a negative is a positive, so it's a positive 138.6. Here, when you're multiplying fractions, you can cancel numbers that go into each other. So this is negative 11 over 10. Here, the 7 and the 21 go into each other 1 and 3 times. The 8 and 32 is 1 and 4 times. So it's positive 1 over 12. Because a negative times a negative is a positive. Here you just multiply. Multiply these two, you get 15. Multiply these two, you get 30. And 15 times 30, or negative 15 and negative 30. But in the end, it works out to be 450. Okay? When you have three fractions, the 2's cancel. The 3 and the 6 cancel to be 2 on top. So it's 1 times 1 times 2, which is 2. 1 times 1 times 5, which is 5. So it's 2/5 because there's an even number of negative signs. Okay? Just multiply, multiply, multiply. And what's 0 times anything? 0. Doesn't matter how many positives or negatives there is in there. Okay? So that's what we're doing today. Okay? I will put out the assignment for you. And